In the past year, the West Virginia Coalition to End Homelessness has been taking extra steps to focus on youth homelessness in the state. It's part of a larger movement to end youth homelessness in America, spearheaded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. In 2010, the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness made a goal to end homelessness by 2020. While we did not end homelessness by then, the national rate of people experiencing homelessness per 100,000 people decreased from 204 in 2010 to 173 in 2019, and we learned new tactics and tools to help house and keep people housed. One thing that HUD found is that though youth homelessness, ages 18 to 24, nationally only makes up about 8% of the homelessness population, this population is more likely to experience homelessness again in their lifetime because they have a lack of experience living on their own.
So for example, when you're working with an individual that is maybe, for example, 50 years old, that has lived in housing, paid their own rent, and then becomes homeless, they have, that lived experience of understanding how to, budget and manage their own tenancy. When we're working with youth that are coming directly out of a state system, they're lacking living skills often, and just the understanding of how to maintain a lease and pay your rent.
Youth who experience homelessness are also especially vulnerable to many other hardships, including traumatic stress and human trafficking. According to a study by Modern Slavery Research Project, 1 in 5 of the homeless youth they interviewed in 10 different cities were identified as victims of human trafficking. The West Virginia Coalition to End Homelessness started working on figuring out the specific needs of the state's youth and targeting resources for those needs in 2017. The first step was to partner with other state and local systems to collect and analyze local data.
Up until that point, up until recently, we did not have any youth-specific funding. So we knew youth were entering into our system, and we were tracking that, but they were just lumped in with every other population. So we wanted to extrapolate that information to see where the largest number of youth that were entering into our system was, and then also look at, did they have previous foster care or juvenile justice involvement?
An organization called the Rapid Results Institute developed an initiative to challenge communities to make progress on housing youth, which ended up receiving support from HUD. The initiative gives communities 100 days to develop systems to house as many youth as possible and to come up with an ambitious goal to house youth while planning and identifying gaps. In January 2020, the Rapid Results Institute announced that West Virginia was invited to participate in the challenge alongside 4 other communities. The West Virginia Coalition to End Homelessness attended a workshop with other communities in South Carolina to establish their goals, and they decided to target Monongalia, Marion, and Harrison counties. Then the initiative was postponed because of the coronavirus. The challenge time frame was shortened to 75 days, and each community had to reevaluate their initial goal.
Our goal was to house 35 youth, and we have to set goals that are almost unattainable, right? Because that's the point of this challenge. But we did safely house or reunify 17 youth and young adults.
Between the beginning of the 100-day challenge and this past March, the coalition served 385 youth or young adults across the 44 counties they cover. 173 of those served were safely reunified or connected with permanent housing resources.
This is before we had any specific youth funding or programs, so I feel like during a global pandemic was pretty impressive.
One statistic to look at when it comes to homelessness is retention rates, or the rate of people who were able to stay housed after being connected to permanent housing. The coalition found that while retention rates for adults and family programs averaged at 90%, the youth rate was only about 60%. They realized that they were lacking the additional support they needed to keep a young person in housing. Through the 100-day challenge, the West Virginia Coalition to End Homelessness realized that in order to best serve youth who are experiencing homelessness, they needed people on their team who are youth who experienced homelessness. They started a youth action board, which includes those youth with lived experience, state entities, and local providers, to figure out how to tailor their services to serve the state's youth. This strategy to include youth-specific services in addition to housing people is referred to as wraparound services. One idea that they came up with is having a housing navigator work with youth to provide these services.
They connect them with employment and education resources, but then also just following the lease, making sure that, you have a guest policy in place to make sure you don't have tons of traffic so the landlord doesn't get upset. A crisis plan, like if there's an emergency in your apartment, who do you call? What do you do? And then also working on budgeting, and obtaining income to even be able to budget.
One member, JJ Caton, has experienced homelessness and being in foster care, and he uses those experiences to advocate for services he wishes he had.
One of the issues that I think that youth have coming out of the foster care system is they need connections to better mental health resources, maybe that youth collaboration. And I just feel like that's something I wish that I could have had more of.
Now the coalition is looking for people to join the board. Anyone between 18 to 24 who has experienced housing insecurity, homelessness, or previous involvement in juvenile justice or foster care system in their lifetime can reach out to JJ by emailing him. The youth on the board are also stipend for their time. More information is listed below. While a survey from Chapin Hill indicates that 1 in 10 youth endures some form of homelessness in a year, youth who age out of the system are more likely to be that one. Because of their high risk factors, an initiative targeted at these youth was started.
Well, you think about someone that might be coming out of foster care and they don't have a family or support system to go to. And while the housing may be one basic level of support for them, there's still so many other things that are involved in just living, and these support services can ensure the most success that we can give them.
The Foster Youth to Independence Initiative was created by HUD and is used in many different states since July of 2019. In West Virginia, the initiative started in Charleston and is now making its way to the Fairmont-Morgantown Housing Authority. In addition to providing these youth with financial support in the form of housing vouchers, they are also assigned a case manager who will help them with some of those wraparound services. Garusa says that several organizations in the community have already started offering to help with the program.
I mean, it's really come together. Makes me proud of our community. It really does. To see them kind of all rally together for this program.
This initiative also seeks to close a gap where youth transitioning out of foster care might have felt that if they needed assistance, they only had the option to sign themselves back into care or go to college. It provides another option to allow youth to go to trade school or go straight to work instead.
It's hard to focus on your education when you don't have a stable home to live in. So maybe they're interested in working part-time, having a stable home to live in, and then talk about education. So it just gives them that option instead of saying the day you turn 18, you have to pick this or there's nothing else.
More information on the FYI initiative, joining the Youth Action Board, and other youth services are available below. For WBOY, I'm Shayla Klein in Clarksburg.